who are watching later on YouTube, I apologize for these live notifications. Um, Sometimes my live doesn't work well, and sometimes I have to go in and go out. But all praises to the Most High. Just thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, being able to wanting to learn or studying with me more so and learning different things that you may have not noticed or know. And everything is for our leveling up. Everything is for us to truly walk in Him in the right ways that He's laid out for us. And I hope these studies have been a blessing to you, as it has been a blessing, major blessing for me, and my family first and foremost. So I'll go ahead and get started in about 20 seconds here. I'll go ahead and pray in about 20 seconds, making sure I have all my things. Pretty sure there's probably going to be like 3 slides that are not formatted correctly, which is okay. But everything else, there's a lot of slides today. It's not too bad. Study should be less than 2.5 hours, which is all good. All right. Give it about 10 seconds. So this is a very powerful study. I think it's just very telling, and it's timely right now, as all things are. So which is a blessing. And just hope you guys make sure you taking your notes, whether you take them today or you watch later. It's always good to go back and study. Always good to go back and check up on things and add on to things and make sure things are being fully rooted in your heart in that good soil, to make sure that you're actually being a doer of His word rather than a hearer, than just a hearer. Because you just really never know why these studies are, or if you're listening, today or watching later, you just never know, why you were directed to it, why you like listening to it. This is obviously for like a later purpose or for a right now purpose, either for you or for someone else that you're, they have that's in your ordained path for you to speak to, and encourage or whatever it may be, teach, exhort, things like that. So, all right. So I'll go ahead and pray in, and then we'll get started. Dear Abba Hayah, we just thank you so much, just for another study, for more life that you've given us. We thank you, Mashiach, just for just for everything of who you are and how you've done these things. Blessed us through your Father to be able to one day and hopefully be the elect, that are chosen in you, and that we strive to do these things, to be just like you on earth, as you made people, great people in this word, an example of you, the different pieces of you, that we may be able to follow in the light of the lamp that you spoke to us about recently. But we just thank you so much just for your word, and just the things that we're able to read and things that we're able to learn and grow in, and just truly just walk as consistent and diligent in you. We just ask that you just bless this study today. Allow us to be open to your understanding, to your word, to your the message that you're trying to get through for us today. That it's not about me and things that I how I see it or whatever it may be. It's all through you, how I see it through you, how you've blessed me to see it through you, how you've blessed me to be able to speak it through you, that you speak through me today, that you allow others to be able to hear you first and foremost. And we just thank you, ask for forgiveness for all things, clear our mindset, our heart, whatever we may be carrying right now, Just allow it to be open towards you and your righteousness and your fear and your wisdom. So we just give you all the praise, glory, and honor. In the name of your Son, we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, y'all. So let's see here. So you can't really see it too well. I didn't go crazy on the graphic. Yeah, I didn't really go crazy on the graphic this time. And I don't have all the animations like I did the other ones, which is totally fine. So I like to, create an element of surprise, right? So, yeah, so our study today is the oil of the lamp, right? So the last study was the light of the lamp, and I pulled that from studying Second Baruch, and it was literally just random, just me just reading it, and then I just came upon that scripture. I think it was maybe in chapter 15 that basically it says that that few have been imitators of the light of the lamp, basically. That it gave an example of Moses spreading the word, right? He was given the word, and we actually talked about that, that the Messiah himself was actually giving him the word. The Father was speaking to him as well, but the Messiah himself was also giving him the word for him to be able to share it with others. And so in that light of the lamp study, the overall basis, the foundation that it came from was that it says that a few have really walked in the light of the lamp and been imitators of like people like Moses, people like Enoch, people like Noah, etc., etc. So we went really into detail that path of righteousness that's laid out for us. And then it also says that not only have few been imitators of those who have been in the light or have shared the light, it says that few are actually rejoicing in the light of the lamp. And so we actually broke that down as well, because it's very, very key. Things are not put into the word for no reason. Everything is strategically placed the way it's supposed to, because the Most High, the way that his mind works, the way his heart works, the way his spirit is, we can't even truly wrap our mind around it, our fleshly brain around it, because of the fact that it's so limitless. The amount of information and the way he connects things and brings things together is just limitless. And it just really puts us in an awe state which we talked about, was the Hebrew word gil was rejoice. There's many Hebrew words for rejoice and Greek words for rejoice, but the one that we were mainly looking at was the gil, Gil, right? And it was really talking about literally like looking up in the sky, like you're running around in a circle, or just looking up, just in awe and fear, reverential fear, just in praise and worship, just truly just you're just like open to him, and just you realize like you are nothing without him, right? And you just are praising and are in awe. And that's what it meant to truly rejoice in the light of the lamp, as you're being an imitator of walking in the light of the lamp, right? So you have to have both of these things and encompassing it with the wisdom that he's blessing us with. So we went into that, right? So the oil of the lamp, it came from the parable of the 10 virgins that we did speak on. It was like a momentary thing that we did talk about in the Light of the Lamp series. Light of the Lamp study last. And it was very interesting, just really looking at the parable again. Like, you obviously know, if you read something once, read something twice, probably that 100th time, you're still getting something from it. Because it's just, like I said earlier, it's just limitless. The knowledge and the understanding and the blessings that come from the counsel that comes from his word is just limitless. It just keeps unfolding itself, right? So I looked at the parable of the 10 virgins again, and it just hit me, like, because it's the detail that we're going to see. It's amazing. So that was a little summary from the first study that we did. And then, yeah, we're just going to break open this parable of the 10 virgins, and then we got some connections to it. And then literally I just hope everything just makes sense for you guys, and it's a blessing for me for sure, as I was already putting it together, but also it's always going to be more of a blessing when I actually study it with y'all in this moment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. Let's see here, first slide. Oh no. Nope. Let's not start off like this. Wait a minute. Okay, there it is. All right. So parable. All right. So we hear that word a lot, and then obviously there's a scripture that breaks it down in the sense of the Messiah saying why he's speaking in parables specifically to his people for them to understand it. Right. So breaking it down a little bit more, parable, the Hebrew word is mashal. That's the 4912 in Strong's Concordance. And it means basically to have, it's like a rule, or it has dominion rooted in the idea of superiority. Or conquering is applied to the parable by virtue of the intelligent wisdom needed to both form and appreciate a parable. Right? So there's the things that the Messiah was speaking on. It has some superiority in the virtue and in the understanding of why we're only able to understand it if we walk after him and we walk in him, because whatever he's saying is literally like top notch for us to grasp, so we can walk even greater in him. And this is not the only parable. The Messiah was the only one who spoke in parables. If you go read in Enoch, there's some parables. There's a heavy parable towards the end of the book where it talks about the sheep, and it's super, super detailed. I myself still haven't fully broke that down yet, but it's very heavy. But it's awesome. It's just some things in there you can kind of get the gist of what's being talked about, because I think the angel does give him the breakdown of what he sees in this vision. Actually, I'm sorry, that was the visions of the sheep, but it was like a parable within it. And then he also talks about some parables earlier in Enoch that are very awesome and very easy to break down, that has to do with the Messiah. So it's also a sense of superiority in mental action. Okay. And when you see that word superiority, it's meaning that you should give attention to, right, in the highest form and highest detailed manner, with all due diligence as you possibly can give it, because it's almost like a key. Or it is a key. It's a key, like basically to the kingdom, like the key to your walk, key to opening a door of within your sanctification period of leveling up in him. He's giving you a key to that next door, to that next avenue. And it also means derived from ordering, ruling, or judging. So we know that the Messiah is king. He is king. His father obviously is above him, but his father created all things through him, right? And so when he returns, he's coming to be king on earth. And then we have that 1,000-year reign. We have that time where he's truly king on earth. And then fully that judgment comes right afterwards, where he's fully just destroying evil, et cetera, et cetera. And then him and his father are where we're going to be in their presence finally. It's just a beautiful thing. And that's all in Revelation. And obviously there's a bunch of connections with that as well. So that is a little bit about parable. And let's see, next slide. All right, so if you have, please pull out Matthew 25. All right, Matthew 25. You guys know, love for you to read with me. later on in the study, there's probably going to be some books that you may not have, but if you have your laptop, iPad, tablet, whatever, phone, extra phone, whatever, you can always pull that up, pull the books up. But of course, I'll read it. Appreciate you, Mike. All right, so Matthew 25. So how we're gonna do this? I call it, or it's called like an exegesis. So it's just pulling apart the scriptures and studying it line by line. So it's just the parable of the 10 virgins. I'm not going past that because this whole chapter has about 46 verses. 46 verses. And so with the parable of the 10 virgins, it's literally only 14 verses, but we're going to break down the main ones. All right. So I have the scriptures version. And you guys see I have these slides up. I always try to show some slides. And of course, we're going to look through these scriptures that are connected with it because we are actually studying. That is the point of why I'm even on here. All right. So line by line. So it says, then the reign of heavens, or the kingdom of heavens, shall be compared to 10 maidens who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Okay, so if you, when I was heavy into Christianity, or I would say like just, whatever, just studying as a quote unquote Christian, kingdom of heaven versus the kingdom of earth, they always try to complicate that. Like you go research it and you see the articles and everything, they always try to complicate it. And it's really not complicated at all. I even took a Bible class one time at one of the schools I went to, and literally, like, they try to complicate that portion so much, and it's not complicated. So, like it mentions, the kingdom of heaven is comparing to the 10 maidens who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Okay, so like we talked about with this parable, it's highest superiority in the understanding and that we need to be able to add on to what we're doing in our walk. So if it's telling you this is a parable compared to literally the kingdom of heaven, which you're striving to go to, it needs all the attention. It needs all your your attention and your diligence to be able to break it down with the understanding and what he's trying to give you, what he's trying to give us. Okay, so the kingdom of heaven, let's see some scriptures on that. So Matthew 13, breaking down the kingdom of heaven, Matthew 13, and that'll be 44 through 48. Okay, so it says, again, the kingdom of heaven is like the treasure hidden in a field, which a man, having found it, hid, and for joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys the field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking fine pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Okay, so he sold all that he had, nothing compared to the kingdom of heaven. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet that was thrown into the sea and gathered some of every kind, which when it was filled, they drew to shore, and they sat down and gathered the good into containers, but threw the rotten away. So super easy connections here, right? To be able to say, okay, what really is the kingdom of heaven, right? To be able to see what the Most High is comparing it to. Let's go to Matthew 18, 23 through 27. It says, because of this, the kingdom of heaven is like a certain man, a sovereign who wished to settle accounts with his servant. So a king who wished to settle his accounts with his servants. And when he had begun to settle them, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. But as he was unable to pay, his master commanded that he be sold, with his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. Then a servant fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, and I shall pay you all. And the master of the servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. That's what the kingdom of heaven is also connected to, and that's the symbolism, and Hebraic way that we're supposed to be able to imagine these things or visualize it. It's beautiful because in that same essence, it's the same way of when we're born into sin, right? Everyone is born into sin, so ideally the true judgment and justified judgment is death because we are in sin. And so brought this example out before. It's like you're in a court case, right? And the Most High is the judge, and you're sitting there, even whether or not you're an adult, a baby, everybody's born into sin. And what happens is, let me get off of this. Google. What happens is you're being judged, and you're told, okay, the justified punishment is death, and you literally can't do anything about it. There's nothing you can do. None of your actions, nothing you can say is justified. Then all of a sudden, his son, the judge's son, comes and says, I will take his punishment unto myself. And he's the only one that could do that. So you're a criminal, and he's coming to make himself the criminal. He's taking your criminal, your judgment, your who you are when we're born into sin. He's taking that from you and putting it onto himself. And then we talked about that in another series with like righteousness. What it's I believe the Hebrew word was like sadak or something like that. And basically, it doesn't mean that just because he does that is without conditions. The conditions is not to return as a criminal, right? So he takes you from being a criminal, and the judge says, okay, this is justified replacement for that. This will settle this debt. This will settle this this court case. And it doesn't mean, okay, now depart. Now that you're free, go do whatever you want. No, there's a condition on how you should live now, right? And it's literally through the one who took your sin, who took you from being a criminal, and so that way you could literally walk in him and learn how not to be a criminal, right? So he's taking that upon himself because he's the only one that's worthy to do so. And so in the same sense of what we just read with Matthew 18, it's the same where it says he has compassion on that person, on that servant who had a debt, and he says, you know what, I'm going to free you with it. And it's really because also the servant showed his heart, showed her heart, and there's an action accompanied with it, right? So, not to break all that down, but it's just in the same essence to kind of visualize more of it, and obviously you can connect that with more understanding as well. Matthew 8. So this is this is for the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 8. And we have verse 8, okay? It says, and the captain answering said, Master, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only say a word, and my servant shall be healed. For I too am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. So I'm like a governor. I have a high position as well. And he says, and I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. And when the son heard, he marveled. When Messiah heard, he marveled and said to those who followed, truly I say to you, not even in Israel, and Yasharallah have I found such great belief, such great faith. And I say to you that many shall come from east and west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov in the reign of the heavens, in the kingdom of the heavens. But the sons of the reign, or the king, or the kingdom of darkness, basically, shall be cast out into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So you see here, there's faith that accompanies great faith that accompanies the kingdom. And literally the same person who had some type of authority was saying, like, there's no authority like you. There's no authority like you, Messiah. There's no authority like you. and that I know that if you command whoever I'm asking you to be healed, it's gonna happen. And it's not like me, because though people listen to me, it's not the same. You are different. That's basically in itself. So the kingdom of heaven is in the same sense. There's nothing compared to it. Nothing. So that's super simple. Connections with the kingdom of heaven. All right. So let's go verse 2 now. So we broke down a little bit of verse 1. So chapter 25 of Matthew. Kingdom of heavens is compared to this parable. The 10 maidens who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Verse 2. So 5 of them were wise and 5 of them were foolish. Okay. And, I see here. So we do have to break down the versions. Okay. So when you go, what that means is version and the symbolism with it. So when you go research, version and you look up, the actual Hebrew word of it, you will see that there is one of them, 1330, Bethula. And that one is actually really, really, really cool. If you kind of dig more into it, but it's basically saying like a young woman, or, it just says like virgin more so, and then it'll connect some scriptures to it, right? Let's see. Yeah. So the other word is Alma. Alma, 5959. All right, 5959. And that one means more so young woman, a virgin, right? And it's actually, it's actually taken from the feminine of the word Alim, which is interesting because Alim means young man. And so you kind of get that same connection with, like, Adam, Eve being brought forth from Adam in a sense, right? But just going back to the virgin symbolism, it does also mean that obviously a man could be a virgin as well. It's very simple. It don't always have to be women, right? But in here, obviously, we do see that, obviously, yeah, it could be quoted in a feminine, obviously, for a young woman. And interestingly enough, when you read Proverbs 6-7, you do get this state of purity. You get this state of purity from Proverbs 6, where basically the dad or the father is telling his son, hey, follow these commandments, understand what you're going to do, understand this, that. He breaks it down very, very well, and he's essentially a virgin in that moment. And a young man that's just, hasn't been touched, hasn't been like touched with evil, etc. Then you get to Proverbs 7, and you see a total different side. It's this woman that ends up pulling him into the fire. It says at the end of that chapter, like an ox goes to the slaughter, did the young man go into the woman's house, whom the woman beguiled him or tempted him and pulled him in to basically sleep with her while her husband was gone. And we actually did a study with Joseph about Joseph and the stuff that he went through, and connected that very well to that one. But like I said, Proverbs 6, he's like a virgin in essentially. He's being taught these morals and these statutes, these commandments, and then all of a sudden, Proverbs 7, he's no longer a virgin. So that's just kind of, mark that down for your own study. But virgin obviously it's symbolizes beautiful, pure things of that nature. So please make sure you guys go research Alma and Bethula. All right. And so also, if you study the Mazzaroth, right, let's say the stars of heaven, or the Hebraic understanding of the constellations, Virgo. So it's interesting. It's called the sign of Betula, Virgo, the virgin, right? So I'm going to read a little bit of what this means as far as the virgin is concerned. And it says that the theme of the sign of Virgo is apartness, holiness, sacredness, set apartness. It's the virgin. And it says it marks the starting point of the history and redemption of the children of Israel as revealed in the 12 signs of the Hebrew Mazarah. And let's see here. And I'm just skipping through. Make sure you guys go look it up yourself as well. It's always some awesome stuff that you can find. And it says Virgo is portrayed in the heavens as a woman lying prostrate along the ecliptic, which is the pathway of the sun, in the position of a woman giving birth. So if you know how women give birth, typically not always the correct, quote unquote, correct way, as some people kind of get into detail of that. But regular, you're in a hospital bed, you're lying prostrate, you're giving birth. And that's the way that Virgo is usually portrayed as. It doesn't mean that when you see the constellation, it's always going to be in a prostrate position, because it goes in the ecliptic, in the pathway of the sun. Okay? And it says that she's indicating that she's a woman with child. She's ready to be delivered. And her left hand, she holds a corn or a sheaf of wheat containing a seed, which is the seed of the woman. And in her right hand, she holds a palm branch. So that's going to be very significant to something that we're going to connect later, really soon. And yeah, so this constellation, or this Mazzaroth here, is really about separation. It's the theme of division and separation. The going down of the sun continues throughout the development of Abraham's seed in Virgo, beginning with Abraham separating himself from his father's house in Ur of the Chaldees, and again from his nephew Lot in choosing to dwell in the land of Canaan, Lot choosing the plain of Jordan. So you'll see, literally, like, you follow that pathway, even way before that, in the time of the fallen angels, and you just see so much separation. And so essentially that's what the Hebrew Mazzaroth, Virgo, is pointing to. So when you see that in chapter 25, already is telling you, verse 1, this kingdom of heavens is compared to these 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. So there's 10. It's not saying there's only 5 virgins, right? Because when we get to verse 2, it does say 5 of them are wise and 5 are foolish. All of them are considered virgins, okay? But only 5 are wise and 5 are foolish. Now there's a separation that you have there, okay? So when we get to Matthew 13, okay? Matthew 13. So we're talking about separation now, right? So you get to verse 24. Matthew 13:24. He says, in another parable he put before them, saying, the kingdom of heaven has become like a man who sowed good seed in his field. So this is AKA the parable of the wheat and tares, okay? Kingdom of heaven has become like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed darnel, or wheat. Okay, or I'm sorry, it's not wheat. It's like you could just say tare if you want to say tare, but it's I guess the correct word is darnel, which is Darnel. So he sowed the tare among the wheat and went away. And when the blade sprouted and bore fruit, then the tare also appeared. And the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed into your field? From where then does it have the tare? And he said to them, A man and an enemy did this. And the servant said to him, Do you wish then that we go and gather them up? And it says, verse 30, let both grow together. He says, verse 29, he says, no, lest you will gather up the tare, you also uproot the wheat with them. So, like we talked about earlier, there's 10 virgins, they're all considered virgins, but only 5 are wise, only 5 are foolish. So in this same essence here, the tare and the wheat grew together, right? They're all in the same, let's just say, area of growth, in the sense of what they're after. kingdom of heaven, right? But it's telling you there's a separation here. There are tares, and then there's our wheats. There's our foolish or wise virgins, and then there's our foolish virgins. And the master is saying, don't pull up the foolish ones because of the fact, or don't pull up the tares because you're going to uproot the wheat with them. Verse 30, it says, let both grow together until the harvest. And at the time of harvest, I shall say to the reapers, first gather the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my granary. Right? So essentially the same thing, we put it to the 10 virgins. Gather the foolish virgins and bundle them up and throw them into the fire, and then gather the wise and bring them here. Okay? It's crazy. You don't really think about connecting that until you really see it. And it's like, oh. All right, let's keep going. Let me pull up my next slide here. And if you guys always have any scripture connections, you guys are always welcome to put that in the chat. Of course, I have stuff that we'll go through, but it's always good for others to also note it, and I can always note it for myself. All right. So verse 3, chapter 25 of Matthew. It says, those who were foolish, having taken their lamps, took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their containers with their lamps. Okay, so obviously there's representation of the oil, right? There's fruit, there's fruit, which are your works. The spirit is also connected to the oil. It symbolizes like purity, cleansing, ordination, etc. Right? So you notice that these foolish virgins, who were supposedly in the same journey as with the wise, they didn't take any oil with them, and they're called foolish. But the wise, they took oil in containers with their lamps. So everybody took their lamps, but not everybody took oil to actually light the lamp. So essentially these foolish people, foolish virgins, were thinking, I got enough oil. Or they didn't even think that they were going to need oil to light their lamp when the bridegroom came. They knew that there's appointed times, and so they're so comfortable and they're so in their element of, oh, well, yeah, I'm already a virgin. I'm already on this path. I know this, I know that. But for some weird reason, they weren't wise enough to think, let me bring my oil. Let me bring some actual oil in containers, so that way when this bridegroom comes, I can actually meet him. Interesting. All right. So now we have the trimming of the lamp. So going back to chapter 25, right? So I'm going to read all the way up until verse 7. So I just read up until verse 4. So verse 5, now while the bridegroom took time, they all slumbered and slept. So everybody slept, okay? All 10 slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, see, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. So there's an appointed time there. Verse 7, it says, then all those maidens rose up, those virgins rose up, and they trimmed their lamps. So something interesting about trimming the lamp. Typically, none of us really trim lamps out here. Some of you guys do, maybe, but I guarantee you it's probably less than 5%. Most of us, I'll say 1%. 99% of us literally turn on a switch and the light turns on. Right? Very blessed. So trimming the lamp. It says a lamp is trimmed when the wick is turned either up or down to regulate the amount of flame. So we're thinking, those flask, like those old school lamps, right? And you got the little turner or the little twist or whatever. I'm not saying it fully correctly, but you guys can kind of get that visualization, right? So there's a wick that you can turn it either up or down to regulate the amount of the flame, which means obviously there should be some oil present, right? If a lamp is empty of oil, it does not matter how much one trims it. The lamp will go out when the oil is consumed. So, repeat, if a lamp is empty of oil, it does not matter how much one trims it, the lamp will go out when the oil is consumed. Apparently, when events make it obvious Christ's return is immediate, the whole church wakes up in surprise. This is research. Its members get out their Bibles to find the answer to where Christ is waiting for them, but with the oil of the Holy Spirit producing only a dim light, they lack the spiritual insight to find him. It is as though the foolish virgins are stumbling around in the dark, trying to understand the word of the Most High, but they cannot. At this point, the foolish are in a state of panic. They realize they cannot understand and do not have the faith to believe. They ask the wise for help in understanding. So obviously there's a deeper concept behind what we're reading, right? So in the same essence, remember, the wise brought containers. They knew that this is an appointed time and what's required for this appointed time. The foolish, who were also considered followers of the Most High, right? Followers of people who were supposed to meet the bridegroom, they didn't bring any oil with them because they are not wise. They're considered not wise. Evidently, they were okay because they slept and slumbered and they thought they were cool, right? So it's like, if you read the verse, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, that didn't apply to them. Make your election sure, that doesn't apply to them. But for the wise, it obviously does. I have a comment here from Sister Penelope. It says, could one say Joshua 12, 18 through 19 is an example of one being filled wise versus one empty, foolish, the contrast between Haran and Abraham? Let me check that out real quick. So Joshua chapter 12. And you know Joshua be having like 100 verses each chapter. So that one I don't know off the top of my head. So you're gonna have to give me like a summary of that one if you can, just to say like, okay, what's the actual comparison field wise? So basically, who was filled, right, and who was empty? So give the actual example of what it says in that chapter, because I'm not gonna be able to just like break it down like that. So just let me know. All right. So continuing. So that's the trimming of the lamp. Okay. So going back to chapter 25, it says that once they woke up and they heard this cry that there's an appointed time now going to happen, everybody rose up and they trimmed their lamps. So when you get to verse 8 in chapter 25 in Matthew, it says, the foolish said to the wise, give us your oil because our lamps are going out. So remember, now all of a sudden, they're trying to turn this wick to bring the fire up, right? To bring the fire up and essentially make sure that they have this fire so that way they can have their lamp and be considered and connected straight to whom? The other versions, right? So the wise versions have their light. Everybody should have a light. Everybody should have a light, right? That's the point. Everybody should have a light when they're going to go meet this bridegroom. But the foolish are like, all right, yeah, let me turn my light. Oh, let's go. Oh, and then they look over at the wise, and the wise are like, cool, burn it. Oh, I got extra oil, I'm good. They got their containers. And so going back to chapter 25, it says, verse 8, it says, the foolish said to the wise, give us your oil, because our lamps are going out. And the wise answer, saying, no, indeed, there would not be enough for us and you. Instead, go to those who sell and buy for yourselves. So remember, in my mind, like obviously, modern day, we could think of a container. You go buy containers at the store, put your leftovers in it. You can even think of it like that, or you can think of it as like, flask or other containers with oil in it, legit, that you can see it through a glass. So now the foolish are only saying that because they can see that the wise are prepared. Okay, so it's interesting when you read about Elisha, who was the prodigy of Elijah. Elijah was a prophet, a seer. He was a powerful prophet and seer. And Elisha was on the up and coming. So Elijah was going to be taken from the people, basically because he made it. It was his time, and he has a certain portion of time later on in the prophecy to return. And some people debate that. Fair enough. But Elisha, in this chapter, he says, the people are like knowing that, okay, Elijah's going to go. So they repeat to Elisha twice, oh, yeah, your master's going to leave, right? And Elisha's like, yeah, I know. Be quiet. Leave me alone. And so you kind of get this sense, if you read it past like just reading it reading the scriptures, you kind of get the emotional feel of it. Like, you're talking about this guy is spending time with Elijah, and he's literally knowing that he's going to leave, and as his master, and he's like, man, like, yeah, I know he's going to leave. I'm trying to just play it off or whatever. So Elijah goes somewhere twice, and in each portion, he's like, hey, Elisha, stay here. I'm going to go. I'll be right back. And Elisha's like, I'm not going nowhere. I'm staying right by your side. So you also get that sense of connection where Peter is asked and told by the Messiah, like, when the time comes for me to be taken, you're going to deny me, right? So there's so much you can kind of connect to that. But going back to Elisha, it gets to a point where Elijah's like, all right, it's time. And what do you want me to do for you in this last moment? And Elisha is like, I need a double portion. I need a double portion of your spirit. So the same person that seen the master himself, his master, seen Elijah do all the things that he did, he's like, okay, if you're leaving, I need a double portion of your spirit. And the same thing with like the disciples. The disciples were, if you go read into detail the chapter where they were in the garden, I believe it's of Gethsemane, if I'm saying it right. It says even though they slept, it wasn't like they were sleeping like a food coma, like you got the itis or something like that. They were sleeping supposedly of grief, because in that meeting that they had in the supper, they were hearing all these things that was going to happen, even though they had heard it before. The Messiah's like, hey, like I'm getting ready to go. I have to be punished. I have to be tortured, whatever, and this is going to happen. They're like, no, like, you're going to leave? Master, you're about to leave us? Like, you, the Messiah, you're going to leave? And so you can kind of put yourself in that moment and feel that, right? And it's the same sense of Elisha saying the same thing, like, Master, you're about to leave? Man, like, I need a double portion of this spirit. So it's the same essence of the wise. The wise understand that meeting the bridegroom requires them to have double portion, right? In the essence, they need more oil. They need more oil. Not just saying, okay, I got a light, I know some things. No, I need more. I need to have it. I need to make sure I'm there with it. I need to make sure I look exactly like him and what he is requiring for me to meet him. Because in this same chapter, Matthew 25, past the parable of the virgins, you will see that it goes into talents, right? The parable of the talents. It starts going into that because now it's telling you what he sold into us needs to be given back to him. The pruning of his works, the pruning of the branches on the vine, and the vine dresser pruning the branches, and the fruit, the works, to be presented to him as first fruits. We talked about that in the study of the fruits of wisdom. So he's not trying to get these incomplete, this broken, and this these people that were not diligent, right, to his word, and with literally no oil. He's like, I need you filled up. I need your light filled up, right? So with the other study, we talked about the light of the lamp, right? And says that not many have rejoiced in the light of the lamp and have been imitators of those who have been in the light of the lamp, who have given us understanding, like Enoch, Moses, etc. Right? You look at those people, and of course, we always are like, man, they were on fire. They were on fire. They had so much oil, so much spirit in them. So the Most High says there's not many imitators. That means he's saying there's also not many who are wise. Because if we were, we would be imitators also. We would walk and rejoice in the light of the lamp as well, right? So we're sitting here reading this and making sure, like we said, that as a parable, it needs to be at the very top, because we truly need to be understanding what is required in order to meet the bridegroom. Elisha understood what was at stake, that for his ordained path, when his master was gone, for him to walk in it correctly, he needed more. Essentially more than what he saw Elijah had in his spirit. He needed more. And he ended up getting that. Just like Solomon, the Most High asked him, you are a king now, what do you want from me? And Solomon says, I want wisdom. And when you go read in the Wisdom of Solomon, there's a chapter, he says, I asked for wisdom because I understood that there's no greater thing than wisdom. Because if you go read in Sirach chapter 1 as well, the root of wisdom is fear. And then it also talks about righteousness. So these things are all connected to it. He's like, how can I be ordained to be over the Most High's people without wisdom, without the Messiah, without his spirit in me? How can I do that? There's nothing else. There's no point for me to have riches, women, etc., whatever. This is Solomon in the beginning, right? He said, I want wisdom. Same thing, Elisha. I want your spirit. I want double that. Okay? So, going back to, and then we have Penelope. So Haran said in his heart, behold, now the king as sees Abraham on account of these things which Abraham did, and it shall come to pass that if Abraham prevails over the king, I shall follow. But if alone prevails, I shall follow the king. Okay. Yeah, consumed in the fire, whereas Abraham. Oh, okay. I remember that. Yeah. So yes, Penelope, there is a separation with that. Yeah, that's perfect. Because there was some more details in that, but I think that's a good connection, for sure. Now I remember. Very awesome. All right, so now we're going to go through entrance and denial. Okay, so let's go back to Matthew 25, and let's go to verse 9. So it says, the wise answered, saying, no, indeed, there will not be enough for us and you. Instead, go to those who sell and buy for yourselves. Verse 10, and while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. So during their time to go buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready, prepared, went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. Verse 11, and later the other maidens also came, saying, Master, Master, open up for us. They missed the appointed time, right? Verse 12, it says, but he answering said, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Verse 13, watch therefore, because you do not know the day nor the hour in which the Son of Adam is coming. For it is like a man going from home who called his own servants and delivered his possessions to them. So you notice this is an appointed time missed, but at the same time, the foolish virgins were told by the wise ones to go buy from someone because the oil that they had already prepared to make sure that was with their lamp. Because they knew that the same oil was connected to the bridegroom. They knew the works, they knew the things that are in them in the spirit and in truth. All that is representation in the oil. They knew that it's a representation of not just having it in the lamp, but it's overflowing. Right? My cup is overflowing. Right? But the foolish say, hey, I got enough for this lamp here. And there's no reason because it's not overflowing for me. They only have their lamps. And so therefore, in the same essence, the foolish still went to go buy oil because they still thought that whoever is going to give them oil, this idol, let's just say, for example, an idol who pours into someone that they've given their heart and soul to, and say like, well, they're the only ones who can give me the answers. This pastor can only give me the answers. This woman can only give me the answers. They went to go to that person who sells the oil, and they still thought that it was going to suffice, even though they were prepared, even though they asked foolishly for the oil of the wise, and they still thought it was okay to go still be late for the appointed time, go buy this oil, and come back and still on top of that say, Master, open up. Like, how? That doesn't show any meekness at all. There's no humbling in that. You think, literally, Master, open up. You're talking about this bridegroom. And the bridegroom says, I don't even know who you are. He knows who the wise are who brought containers of oil, but he doesn't know who the foolish are that didn't bring containers of oil, who weren't overflowing with his spirit. He knows who the wheat are amongst the tares, right? So this is the thing with the wheat and the tares. This is a very interesting part. I don't know if it's going to show well on here. Oh, there it is. So it says the biblical interpretation says the wheat represents the good children of the Most High, those who are righteous and kind. The tares represent those who are evil and who do not treat their fellow man with kindness, those who do not follow the righteous path. Okay, this is just research. And it's interesting too, and you really break down the tares and the wheat. So the wheat is processed into flour. Look, it's going into different things, right? That is edible, that is worthy to be used in different functions, right? In the same essence. So if we go back to the vine, right? The branches that are connected to the vine, who is the Messiah, is worthy to be on the vine. The branches are worthy to be on the vine, and the fruit that is on the branches that are being produced is worthy to be there, though the vine dresser is also pruning it so that way those fruits can be perfect. Because the vine, the Messiah says himself that no one who the Father gave to him can take out of his hand, right? So with the wheat, you see there's benefits, there's this overflowing. When you get to the tares, the weed, it also says that it's a false wheat. So remember, in that parable of the wheat and the tares, the master said, don't just pull out the tares even though you see them. Let them grow with them. Let them grow. Let them grow, because they still will be able to see there is a wise path. There is a righteous path. If it's possible to deceive the elect, for the elect to be deceived, that they may not actually see, oh, there's the path right there. There's the wise and righteous path. So they still grew with the wheat, but then when that appointed time came, what happens? The tares are now pulled out to go into the fire, and now the wheats are given, boom, go where the wise are there. And it says here, the tares are false wheat. The Most High knows who are not his. Just because it may seem like people are his, it don't really mean that everybody is. Because why would there be a remnant? Right? It's very interesting. It's really interesting. Because same thing with the parable. There are 5 wise, 5 foolish, but they're all virgins. They're all considered looking like wheat. But then it shows the Most High knows who are the foolish and the wise, who are the wheat and the tares. He knows. So, especially on Instagram and social media, everybody can look like a wheat. Everybody can look like a wheat. So I got here Mike a comment says, reminds me of when the Messiah said, many in the last day will say, Adonai, exactly, Master, Master, Adonai, Adonai, have we not done great works in your name, etc. But the Messiah answers, depart from me, you works of lawlessness. Exactly. It's the same essence of saying, depart from me, you workers of no wisdom, of no righteousness, of no fear. Because he's literally saying, that don't look like me at all. And they think, they're coming to him and saying, okay, well, yeah, I celebrated your feast days. I did all these different things, but it wasn't in the right heart. It wasn't in the right manner. Yes, absolutely. In Scripture, it does say some of the works that people do can be in vain. You go read Isaiah 58, literally read that, and he talks about the fasting, celebrating of the new moons, etc. All that stuff was trash to the Most High initially because of the fact that they were missing the point of also things that were supposed to be connected to it. Just in a general sense. Go read that. Like, that's as clear as day. It's not, it goes back to the whole, that's a long story, but it's just an easy connection to really be like, okay, really, what is the master saying? Who does he know? Who does he know? And do we know him in fullness and in truth? And Mike also says that where it says this, but there's not that much separation from buying or selling. Sinning is a good example of this in the book of Jonah, when Jonah buys a boat ticket to run away from his duty. Exactly, right? And so the thing with him is, let's just say if he's a terror in that moment, right? He cries out. He cries out in chapter 2 or 3, and which gives a validity to the name Yahusha, and because of the Shua, meaning the crying out part and the saving part, etc. But it gives validity to that name that we can use for the Son of the Most High. But he's crying out to him, and he's asking for forgiveness. He's like, save me from the belly of the beast. Save me, right? So he sees, like, he's wise. He's wise. He's like, man, I'm not supposed to be in this place. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I need to really grow up. I really need to get, So, but you see, towards even the end of the story, it's not the end of Jonah, but it's the end of the story, that he doesn't have any mercy. He doesn't have any true mercy in what he's actually seeing and what has happened. He experienced it. He experienced the joy a little bit, but then he's going through some stuff in his heart, right? And so the Most High is like, what's your deal, bro? Like, do you really not understand and see what has happened? The compassion and the mercy I've literally spread to these people here. And he can't. Jonah literally leaves off on that question. It doesn't mean that Jonah was just done, right? But it's just really something to really think about. All right, so I think we are finished with that breakdown. Okay, we're finished with that breakdown as far as the parable is concerned. All right, so Proverbs chapter 3. I want to read from the ESV version translation. Look at that version. ESV version translation version. That's the Version. I was just kidding. So 13 through 18 it says, Blessed is the one who finds wisdom. So we're thinking about the wise virgins who took containers of oil for their lamp, and when the bridegroom came, they were prepared and they had overflow of oil. That way they know, and they made their election sure that the bridegroom was going to accept them. The foolish did not take any containers of oil, and they thought whatever that they had in their oil and their lamp was okay. And so when they got to turning the wick to turn up that fire, it really wasn't on fire. And then they tried to take and ask the wise to give them some of their oil. And the wise, even though they had containers of oil, you would think it would be a little bit of, pour a little bit in there, all right, so we all can make it. The wise said, it's not even enough for you and for me. So same thing, Elisha. Imagine he asking for a double portion of the Most High Spirit, right? And then he's like, oh, well, I can give like a fourth of it, to someone else. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is what I need. It's not even selfish. This is what I need because it's required. Because in 2nd Esdras, it tells you everyone will be judged for your deeds, whether you're righteous or unrighteous. Everyone in his individual self will be judged, right? I'm married, so absolutely when it says that you present your wife without blemish, that's connected to my ordained path, right? So if she's with blemish, when I'm presenting her unto the Most High, that does go against my judgment, but I'm still judged individually, right? If I do everything I'm supposed to still do, ideally, we're one flesh either way. So, if we're both walking in the Most High, we should both, if we're judged as righteous, literally be judged as righteous together, right? But there are scriptures, and you see there's connections in different portions of the word where not every person in the marriage will be walking in righteousness, wisdom, and fear. So it does happen, right? It does happen. And doesn't mean it's just like Lot and his wife. His wife decided to literally turn and not do what the Most High said, and she turned into a pillar of salt. And it says somewhere, I think it's Sirach, that she is a pillar that stands for unrighteousness, that stands for her being disobedient. And Lot, he wasn't playing no games. He went straight, didn't look back. It was appropriate. Now, do you think he was going to bow down and be like, hey, Abba, please save her? No, because at that point, it's an appointed time. In 2nd Esdras, it says there is an appointed time, day of judgment, that you can't pray for anybody. None of that, right? Connects perfectly to the 10 virgins and the bridegroom coming at an appointed time. But also in your own judgment, day of judgment, that we may not all of us get to that point when the Messiah actually returns. We may not all be alive right then and there. So your day of judgment also is when you die, like everybody else, right? So in the same essence, why be the foolish ones, right? Why be the foolish ones? Knowing these things, okay? So reading quickly, Proverbs 3:13 through 18. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom, who are like the wise virgins. I'm going to paraphrase here and there so I can connect our parable. And the one who gets understanding. For the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life for those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. So those wise ones, those wise virgins, are called blessed. Verse 19, the Most High by wisdom founded the earth. Actually, I'm sorry, I don't have to read that. Yeah, so that was it. That was it, 13 through 18. So this is an image of the wise ones. Okay? So we're going to go straight into our beatitudes. Okay? So this is the thing. When we talk about, let's see, I have the screenshot. So It says the wise took oil in containers to prepare while being prepared for their meeting the appointed time. Okay, so I keep stressing this because it's the basis. Like this is it's so needed to really make sure like we really grasp that, because they're considered wise. We talk about wisdom in these studies so much, and you see how beautiful and how amazing it is connected to so much, and it just helps us obviously be obedient, walk in power and truth, etc., right? So these wise virgins took oil in containers, their works and their things that they had in their spirit, in their body, in their being, was accepted by the bridegroom. Nothing else was accepted but this. Right? So that means, okay, what is necessary? Right? Okay, yeah, we say follow the commandments. You see that everywhere, especially if you're new to the Torah community. That's the easiest post that you can find. Follow the commandments. And then, of course, around this time, you see, okay, there's feast days. You got many people saying, okay, well, this day is the day that you celebrate this feast day. This is the moon that you go by. This is how you know that spring has started. This is why you shouldn't celebrate man's holy days, but you should celebrate the feast days. So we have all this information going, right? Beautiful, yes, absolutely. It's a great thing in the essence of us promoting things to come to the Most High. But then the wise will see something past all of that. What's required if a feast day is an appointed time? What's required in order for us to engage in these feast days that are appointed times? For us to have oil in containers. Right? For us to have oil in containers. For us to be wise. For us to make sure we know who we're meeting with. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand how, like, why would you, because if you don't have, if you're not considered wise by having the oil in containers when you're engaging in the feast days, then the only other thing you're labeled as is as foolish. Because the ones that are foolish are taking these feast days, taking these appointed times, taking these things that are in the Word so light and minute. They're just like, yeah, we got to do this. And then they're just, that's it. And then that's how they live. Or they may even live in front of you in Instagram or social media, whatever, like a wheat. But you don't even know, a lot of them are tares. You never know, right? Just because they're sharing some good information, a lot of them may be tares. But what happens is when people make their idol, they make a lot of these tares idols, these foolish versions idols, guess what they end up becoming? That same exact thing. But the wise know what's going on right now. There's a separation like we talked about. Clear as day. Because the bridegroom, yes, he's coming. So there's a separation. The wise aren't sitting there preparing like a tare, preparing like a fool. They're preparing like a wise man, preparing with fear, preparing with righteousness, preparing with wisdom to be in this appointed time. These feast days are a glimpse of that time. So why wouldn't we treat it the same? That's reverence. That's fear. Why would you not treat the same? Like, why? There's so much beauty in these feast days. There's so much beauty in the things that we read in His Word. Why make it so minute to the point where I want to show it on Instagram that I'm following a feast day? Oh, I want to just do it the same way every year. Not learn more. Not just learning, but putting it in the good soil of your heart. Trying to get more out of what you're really gaining. If it says days of remembrance, really, what is that about? Why am I supposed to remember these days? You know what I'm saying? So it's so much more. That's the oil that are in the containers that the wise virgins had. It says, Riley says, seems like some people in the truth have no kindness and they think they know everything. No humbleness and no fear. I mean, you talk about the tares. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not the ones that's saying, okay, I'm the judge, so I'm putting you into condemnation that you are done. Everybody has grace and mercy towards them, right? To be able to turn from their ways, right? Because that's also, even if someone is a wheat, not all your works are fully complete and fully perfect yet, right? So what something isn't perfect, that's why the vine dresser, the Father, is pruning these works that are attached to his Son, who are the branches, the people that are attached to him, to the vine, who are the branches, and the fruit that's coming from it. He's pruning it to make sure it's complete. So that way, when the Messiah returns, he's coming for his first fruits. He doesn't want no fruit that's just trash. He's looking for what Abel provided. When Abel provided his first fruits, in the book of Jasher, I believe, or Jubilees, it says that the fire came down from the heavens and consumed it because he loved it. Like that was required, but Cain didn't provide that. Easy wheat versus tares type of thing. So same thing like Riley is talking about. No kindness. They think they know everything. You could tell. These are things that we're not supposed to have because that's considered foolish. There's no oil there. Though they may seem like they're lamps, there's no oil there. And we got to reflect on ourselves in the same exact manner. Because what do you see? Same scripture says, okay, don't be a hypocrite. Right? Don't be a hypocrite. Pull the beam out of your own eye before you try to pull out somebody else's eye. So that's where you get the humbleness, the meekness. Right? But perfect segue into what Riley is talking about. You have the question, what do we need in the oil in the container? So now that's a big question in itself. You can kind of go super vast, but the Beatitudes. We're going to look at the Beatitudes and really, really see how strong these connections are here. Oh, no. Come on. I know I have it. Yeah, there we go. All right, so the Beatitudes. So the definition of the Beatitudes means supreme blessedness, state of well-being. So when you think about the wise virgins, remember, all the virgins, they slept, okay? They knew the bridegroom was coming, and they all slept. So they were all sleeping same way, okay? But the difference is, obviously, we talked about the wise virgins. They were prepared, more than prepared. Okay? So they were in a true state of well-being. Now, the foolish virgins were not in a true state of well-being. It was a falsified state of well-being. Same way that Mike brought up earlier about the other connection in Scripture where it says that those same people were saying, Father, I did this in your name. I did these works. I did this study. I did talk to this person. And I did all these works or whatever the case is. And then the Messiah's like, I never knew you. You had a false state of well-being in your heart this whole time, but I don't even know who you are because you don't even know who I am. You have people saying the verb I am, or that's connected to the word I am, or the concept of I am, and just the way that the Most High says I am, but you don't know who he really is, because if you did, we would literally resemble the way that the wise prepare to meet their bridegroom. Same thing for Messiah. We have to know who he is and what is required. We say, worship in spirit and truth. Like, we project all this stuff out like this, and you just put it out there, and then there's no character, there's no, nothing behind it. It's just gatekeeping. Straight out the gate, okay, this person got a lot of followers here. Whatever he or she says is valid. and then there's no wise discernment. It becomes blind following. So then there's no true studying. There's no true, let me make sure I'm doing the work on my own end so I can make sure I'm seeing past just what I may hear and I'm being a doer of the word. Right? Yeah, I may not understand it as much as this person seems to understand it. Or, yeah, it actually checks out, but I need to actually do the work too. Maybe I can understand it even more. Yeah, it may take a lot more time, but that's okay. Right? That's okay. Because would you rather have more of a state of well-being knowing that you're being guided by the Most High to study into something that's been presented, something like this, let's just say, and you go back and you try to really read about this parable and really make other connections? You have more of a state of well-being doing that than just sitting here listening to me giving you this breakdown. It's awesome, right? And I'm studying with you. But at the same time, if you just leave it where it is and not go figure out how to put more oil in your containers, then there's no well-being in that. There's no well-being. There's no well-being, because I'm trying to make sure the bridegroom knows me, because I want to make sure I know who the bridegroom is first. So you should be doing the same thing. So the Beatitudes give you this supreme blessedness. That's what it means. And it's the wisdom of the Torah that increases understanding through counsel. This specific Beatitude, these Beatitudes, they catalyze growth in fear, and which is the root of wisdom, and facilitate righteousness. Okay? So typically people associate Matthew 5, right, with the Beatitudes. Is my laptop going to die? No, we got 19%. That's good. So we're going to kind of go through, shalom. We're going to go through the Beatitudes, and it's not even going to be heavy at all. And you guys are going to see some crazy, awesome connections in this one. So now we really laid this foundation down like we always do. And now we're really going to get into the heat of it all. Okay? So I know it's a little small there. You see me kind of zooming in. I do have it on my laptop as well. So I'll be reading on my laptop. So this is the oil that was in the containers of the wise. Okay? So Matthew 5. So, blessed are the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So remember, we go back to chapter 25, verse 1 of the parable of the 10 virgins. It says in verse 1, then the kingdom of heavens shall be compared to the 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. So it's telling you this, it's the 10 virgins. This is what the kingdom of heaven is like. The 10 virgins attaining the kingdom of heaven is like these 10 virgins who had their lamps and they were preparing to meet the bridegroom. Then it goes into a breakdown. On one end, you have some that are going to receive the kingdom of heaven because they're wise and they have overflowing of oil. And on the other end, you have the ones who believe that they're going to receive the kingdom of heaven, but they're foolish because they don't have any oil in their lamp and overflowing with oil. That's the clear portion of it. So when you get to the Beatitudes, it's saying the ones who are poor in spirit, theirs will be the kingdom of heaven. So essentially the same thing. Those who were wise as virgins, they were poor in spirit. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Right? So Job 36:6. It says, he does not keep the wicked alive, but gives the afflicted their right. Okay, it gives their afflicted their right. So when you look up the etymology of poor, it also means afflicted. It also means humble, right? Meek. So when you go research about the wicked being afflicted, there's a difference between the wicked being afflicted and the poor, humble being afflicted. So when you go look in Enoch and these chapters that I put down, 38:5 and 100:5, I'll read just one. I'll read one of them. So I'll read Enoch 38:5. Um, it says here, then the kings and the mighty will perish and be given into the hands of the righteous and holy, and from then on none will seek for themselves mercy from the Most High, and their life is at an end. So maybe that was the wrong one. I'll just read 105. So it says, and he will appoint guardians over all the righteous and the holy, and from among the holy messengers to guard them as the apple of his eye, until he makes an end of all the wickedness and all sin. And though the righteous sleep a long sleep, they have nothing to fear. So within the essence of these scriptures about wickedness and righteousness that Enoch starts talking about towards the end of the book, the wicked are being afflicted heavy. And though the righteous will be afflicted during, tribulation times, or even still in the now, it's not nearly compared to what the wicked will be afflicted with, right? It's a total difference. So then you see in Enoch 105:23, you're going to see some affliction that's different. So 105 verse 23. Oh, that's why. So on mine, it's a little bit different on the LST, on this part of it. So I gotta actually find it. I'm gonna go 108, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm bouncing around. It's a different chapter than online versus in the book. So chapter 108, and I'm gonna read verse 7. For some of them are written and inscribed above in heaven, in order that the messengers may read them and know that which will befall the sinners. And the spirits of the humble, of the poor in spirit, and of those who have afflicted their bodies, have been repaid by the Most High, and of those who have been put to shame by wicked men, those who love the Most High and love neither gold nor silver nor any of the good things which are in the world, but gave their bodies over to torture, who since they came into being did not long after earthly food, oil, but regarded everything as a passing breath and lived accordingly. And the Most High tried them much, and their spirits were found pure, so that they should bless his name. And I have recounted the blessings destined for them in the scrolls, and he has assigned them their reward, because they have been found to be such as loved the kingdom of heaven, more than their life in the world. And though they were trodden under the foot by wicked men, and experienced abuse and reveling from them, and were put to shame, yet they blessed me. So you notice, okay, that means that the foolish ones didn't love heaven. They didn't love this appointed time more than their life. They did it. It says it here. Right? So that's the poor in spirit. So then also one of my favorite scriptures. This helped me so much when I was younger. Chapter 1, 1 Corinthians chapter 1. So it says verse 7. It says, for the Most High chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. The Most High chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. So, like it says, in the world, people who, like the chapter 2 of Wisdom, in the book of Wisdom, the people who were celebrating YOLO and drunkenness and just partying and just living their life, whatever, how they want to live it, with pleasure, they looked at this man of righteousness, this man who was walking in the Most High, as foolish and weak, right? So it's same essence. In verse 27 of chapter 1 of 1 Corinthians, is saying the Most High chose those who are foolish in the world to shame the wise, who are supposedly wise in the world. The Most High chose what is weak, poor in spirit in the world, to shame the strong. The Most High chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to the nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of the Most High. And because of him, you are in the Son, in Messiah Yahshua, who became to us wisdom. Literally, he became to us wisdom from the Father, righteousness and sanctification and redemption, so that as it is written, that let no one boast. Let the one who boasts boast in the Messiah. Boast in the Messiah. Fill your containers with oil. So that's blessed were the poor in spirit, because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Next, blessed are those who mourn; they will be comforted. So in Second Baruch, and I didn't tie every single scripture because I didn't think that was appropriate to go through like every scripture that connects. This is for obviously for all of us to complete. I want to even add more obviously on here for my own chart, and you guys can make your own chart or take this if you want, whatever. So this is interesting with here, Second Baruch, chapter, what does it say, 48? And remember, this is a representation of the oil that is in those containers that the wise had to meet the bridegroom. So chapter 48. And it says verse 38 through 41. It says, and it will come to pass at the same time that a change of times will manifestly appeal to every man. Because in all those times they polluted themselves and they practiced oppression, and every man walked in his own works. So that's kind of like also what Riley was talking about, in the way that they are doing works, in the way that they're seeming like they're in the truth, and in the way that they're going about how they're spreading truth, or things that they carry with them that is obviously not of the Most High's character. This is also what it's talking about. They're practicing and they're walking in their own works. And it says, and did not remember the Torah of the Mighty One. Therefore a firework will consume their thoughts, and inflame the meditations of their reins will be tried. For the judge will come and will not tarry. The bridegroom will come and not tarry. Because each of the inhabitants of the earth knew when he was transgressing. But they did not know. Just like the wicked, just like the foolish virgins, they knew that they didn't have the same oil. Now it's interesting whether or not they knew that the wise had containers of oil. You could debate, but either way, when you settle on something and you're kind of like in this error, you don't tend to see certain things that are actually there, especially if it's wisdom. The men that are in the world, right? People that are in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. You can't see what wisdom has to offer because it's not any of that, right? So they knew still in themselves as foolish that they only had so much oil, that it was, and they settled in their heart that it was okay, that was enough. Going back to this scripture, it says, but they did not know. They did not know my Torah. They did not know Messiah. They did not know the Son. They did not know the bridegroom by reason of their pride. But many will then assuredly weep, mourn, yes, over the living more than over the dead. So it's interesting. Connected this here because in the Beatitude it says, blessed are those who mourn. So when we're thinking about these wheats and tares, to be honest, it is sad. It is sad. It is sad that there are tares in the first place that are growing amongst the wheat. Because they're going to go, and this is just the facts, they're going to go their whole, however much life, and find out and hear that awful, who are you? I don't know you. That's awful. That's something to mourn about, right? And that's more so for us to really be like, hey man, like let's really like get out of this. Like, call it out. Like really what is like that's not okay. But then at the same time, you can't fix everybody. Like that's this, you're not the fixer, right? So this is already ordained prophecy that yes, there's going to be some that are going to be wheat, some that are going to be tares, right? So let's continue. It says, "Blessed are the meek; they will inherit the earth." So that's an easy Psalm 37:11. Psalm 37:11. And this is all that is in the oil. All that is in the oil of the containers that the wise stored. Blessed are the meek, and they will inherit the earth. Psalm 37:11, it says, "But the meek ones shall inherit the earth and delight themselves in plenty of peace." Some other ones say you inherit the land, right? So there's connections that you can draw in here about, especially another Exodus happening with his people, in a certain time set. Either way, when he's gathering his people, right? It's so much connections. There's so much beautiful rewards that are coming from or coming to the righteous that are already prepared for the righteous. Even when you go reading Enoch and he's telling you what he's seeing as far as the trees that are he's describing it as best as he can, but it's for the ones who are righteous, like the tree of life, the waters that he's describing, the peace, and the fact that he also says that his soul or his spirit longed to be there, and the angels say, yeah, you trust me, this is your dwelling place, because you are righteous, you are the scribe of righteousness, you are there. You are already living in the ways that the Most High has ordained for us to live, who are His, who are wise. So it's just things like that, where you see like this is a part of inheriting the earth, which is the blessings that are coming from you truly being meek. So next it says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled." So I have a lot of scriptures here, and I'm only going to go probably through a certain amount. So this one is actually really good. I actually really like this one. I like them all, but Isaiah 55, 1-2 says, "Come, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and he who has no money, come, buy and eat. Come, buy wine and milk without honey and without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me, and eat what is good, and delight yourselves in rich food." And it says, "I incline your ear and come to me. Hear, so that your soul may live. And I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast, sure love for David," for Jacob, for Abraham. You can even say for you. Put your name in there, right? So those who are hunger and thirst for righteousness, they will be filled. And he's telling you, come to me, I will fill you. Matthew chapter 4, verse 4, it says, "He answered, it is written that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of the Most High." We got John 6, 48, 51. And you think about the parables of the bridegroom, they knew this. I mean, the parables of the 10 versions, the wise versions knew these things. They had it in their heart. That's why they would prepare more oil to make sure that they get to the bridegroom. Verse 48. It says, "I am the bread of life." So this is John 6, verse 48-51. "I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh." Fire. So fire. So fire. Now we're going to go to Sirach. Sirach. Not Sirach. Sirach. Sirach 27. Somebody called that. I never thought about it like that, but that's crazy. Imagine they did that on purpose. Somebody know what I'm saying. Sirach 27, 8 through 9. If thou followest righteousness, you shall obtain her and put her on as a glorious long robe. The birds will resort unto their like, so will truth return unto them that practice in her. Simple. Follow righteousness, they will obtain her. You will put it on. It will be your robe, a glorious robe, and the birds will resort unto their like. So will truth return unto them that practice her. So you're literally being filled. You're being filled. That's what it's meaning. You're filled with righteousness. Sirach 15, 16, 13 through 14. It says, the sinner shall not escape his spoils, and the patience of the godly shall not be frustrated. Make way for every work of mercy, for every man shall find according to his works. Okay, so that's meaning that if you are thirsting for righteousness and thirsting for, hunger and thirsting for righteousness, you're going to be filled because your works are connected to that. You're making way of every work of mercy, and that way you're going to be filled with the good things that are blessed when you are hungering after righteousness. Okay? So next one. Blessed are the compassionate. They shall obtain compassion. So I have 2nd Enoch here. So a lot of people don't really read 2nd Enoch. I think you should check it out if you are studied well, or you have some foundations and things. Just keep it as a note if you don't. But it's 2nd Enoch, also called Secrets of Enoch, if you want to say. Chapter 62. I'm going to be reading from here a lot more later on in the study. Blessed is the man who in his patience brings gifts with faith before the Most High. Before the Most High's face, because he will find forgiveness of sins. He will find compassion. So now it's saying that your patience is connected to compassion. But if he takes back his words before the time, there is no conversion for him. And if the time passes and he does not do what is promised of his own will, there is no conversion after death. Because every work which man does before the time is all deceit before men and sin before the Most High. Let me keep going. When man clothes the naked and fills the hungry, he will find reward from the Most High. But if his heart murmurs, so this is what it's talking about. If the heart murmurs, if it's really complaining because you have to do it, he commits a double evil. A ruin of himself and of that which he gives. For him there will be no finding of reward on account of that. So it's interesting, even for myself, reading this, and I was reading it before, wife is pregnant, and it's not easy, taking care of the kids as well when she's sleeping, or, she's not feeling too well. I'm trying to balance everything out. And, she's asking me to do certain things, and whether I may be tired or trying to, study or maybe get a little workout in. I don't know. Sometimes it's just like a sudden, okay, I got to make her some food real quick. And you're doing that every day, right? And sometimes, yes, I know for me, since my wife has been pregnant, temperance, self-control over certain frustrations that I may have, or, whatever it may be. That's really been my focus to make sure I'm locking in on that. And sometimes I do slip, making making eggs at 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that. It's not easy. It's just stuff that you just have to change up, and you just improve, and you really gotta catch yourself. And so same thing for me, making sure that my heart isn't murmuring. Just because I may give my wife what she's asking me to give her doesn't mean that my heart isn't murmuring, right? I have to, I know that, like, if whether or not I know how I feel about it, and if she's saying thank you, she may not see it, but then you can feel, especially if you're strong in the spirit, you can feel when somebody's spirit is off. And I have to check myself. My wife is very strong in the spirit, so she can feel if I'm just kind of giving her something and saying, oh yeah, you're welcome, or something. So I do. With self-control is self-evaluation, right? So you make sure that you're evaluating yourself and being like, okay, I don't need to murmur, because you go to the scripture where it says literally, when the Messiah is like, when you gave to that person, you gave to me. When you fed the hungry, you fed me. When you clothed the ones who didn't have clothes or something like that, you clothed me. So whatever you did not do to them and what you were supposed to do, you didn't do to me. That's heavy, because you think about it like, man, imagine if your heart is murmuring when you're supposed to be doing something in kindness and things like that are a part of his spirit, and you're engaging in a fleshly mindset of murmuring and complaining, or just not being gentle, whatever the case is. You're doing that to him, to the bridegroom that you're supposedly trying to meet one day. You know what I'm saying? So it just connects. But this is the oil that is supposed to be in the containers that the wise have, right? So it says, for him there will be no finding of reward on account of that, on account of the murmuring. And if his own heart is filled with his food, and his own flesh clothed with his own clothing, he commits contempt, and will forfeit all his endurance of poverty, and will not find reward of his good deeds. Why you think it says that when the Messiah, when those people were like, hey, I did all these things, blah, 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 Messiah's like, I never knew you. Because those things were vain, because of the fact that in this chapter we're reading right here, the heart was murmuring. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't kind. It's serious. It's not even corny. It's literally legit what we need in order to meet the bridegroom. It says, every proud and grandiose man and every false speech clothed in untruth is hateful to the Most High, and it will be cut with the blade of the sword of death and thrown into the fire and will burn for all time. That is the Most High's vengeance. He gets the vengeance, right? He says, vengeance is mine, not yours. Not for you to go cut people down or whatever the case is. It's for him. So that was a simple connection. With the blessed are the compassionate, for they will obtain compassion. All right. The next one. Blessed are the clean, the pure in heart. They shall see the Most High and the Son in his glorious works. So I added the Son and his glorious works because it just coincides with it. I'm not adding, quote unquote, changing the scripture. It literally says they shall see the Most High. So we know what's coming, in the end, when New Jerusalem and all that stuff like that, you notice, obviously, the Son is going to come first. And then the Most High will be with us after that final judgment. And obviously, if we're with him, or we're with the Son, we're with the Father, we'll see all his glorious works. That's clear as day. We see his works right now. We see the beautiful things that's in it. But, I mean, Enoch was the main one to see so much. We're trying to interpret it as much as we can and connect things like that. You can literally only do it with wisdom to even get a smidget of the beauty that he was able to really see and put it on paper or put it in writing. So when we are clean and pure in heart, those are the only ones who get to see him in his glorious works and the Son. Those are the wise ones that had containers of oil with their lamp. They were able to meet the bridegroom, that were able to be going to the entrance, and the door literally shut behind them. Those are the ones who were pure in heart. Simple. The foolish ones weren't. So you notice that the foolish ones will sit there and uh, uh, make less than the Most High searches your hearts and the conducts of your works. They'll make less than that, and they'll say, well, no, this is more important right here, this prophecy here, this esoteric knowledge that, we're breaking down this scripture, and it's so much like cool little things in here that's just mind-blowing. Like, people focus so much on that, and they think that that has so much validity, and them keeping that, and then they're able to like kind of like spread that, and then meanwhile they're not working on their heart. They're not working on these character flaws that we all have, but they're not working on these things. But they rather tell you what a pastor or a lady or whoever that they've made an idol. Tell them so they can tell you what they said, and they don't even know themselves. They just follow them. Anyway, the connection with that is Apocalypse of Elijah, the pure fast. So I'm not going to read it. You guys have heard me read it before. You've seen it before. Pure fast, pure heart, pure hands. Essentially a pure mind, because it talks about not being double-minded. And also with your mind, it will come with your heart if you're aligned with the Most High. So you have a pure heart. A pure fast is nothing to play with. It's not just fasting and not eating or drinking water. It's really, if you love him, you're not focused on receiving anything from him. You're not focused on receiving blessings because you know who he is already. You're focused on worship. You're focusing on completely bowing yourself down. And when you're fasting, this is just a generalization of it, general statement of it, you're denying your flesh, right? You're what Enoch says in Secrets of Wisdom, or Second Enoch, he says that when I learned the things of wisdom, I literally had no need for food, no earthly food. When I really started eating this bread of life that we literally talked about up there, where it says hunger and thirst for righteousness, because he hungered and thirsted for righteousness, wisdom, and fear, he gained all of that, and there was no need for him to eat any fleshly food. No need. Even though he was still us, he transcended into a different portion where you see in 2nd Esdras chapter 14, it says, put off your weak nature. Right? Put off your weak nature. Get rid of these mortal thoughts, these burdens of thoughts that put you down. Clean your house, like set your house right. So these things that we're born with or born into, literally everything in this word that we divided correctly, we put it onto ourselves, like we talked about in the Odes of Solomon. If you guys read that with me, or chapter 1, it says putting on the crown of Messiah. He's putting literally him on you. Crown of life, crown of righteousness, helmet of salvation, right? The Messiah. We talked about this globe of righteousness. The robe of righteousness, right? So these things are literally on you, right? So you get to read like something like Elijah, a prophet Elijah, and the power that was in him through the Spirit. He lays on someone that is dead, and they come back alive. Body to body, and they come back alive. Like, talk about the Spirit. So Elisha, in seeing that, he's like, I need a double portion of your Spirit. I need a double portion of that Spirit that you have. I need to fill my oil with the containers. Fill my containers with oil in order for me to meet this bridegroom. Because I know what this entails. I know what this is taking. Like, I know what it takes to really be given entrance to meet with the bridegroom who's coming. So look that up. Pure fast. It's not just a fast. It's a different step. And it'll tell you what accompanies a pure fast. Next, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of the Most High. So in chapter 4, in 4th Maccabees, chapter 13, I connected this with brotherly love. So like I said, add to all of these, right? Brotherly love, promoting peace. So this is very overlooked, especially now. You see in prophecies like in Timothy or Peter, it says like love will grow shallow, right? Even love that children have for their parents will diminish because of the wickedness that keeps arising. And you see it. You see it in the news. You see all these different things with the children, the parents, things like that, right? So when you read 4th Maccabees chapter 13, what was going on is that Epiphanes, the king Epiphanes, or Epiphanian, if I'm saying it correctly, he was a governor, and in this moment, he already has made this statement to basically try to pull people who are renowned people of the Most High, who follow in his footsteps, and he's trying to tell them, eat this swine, and it's just more than just eating the swine. It's like literally drop everything that you are doing for the Most High, and knowing what you know and being pure, and become foolish and mix it in with the world, right? And he's telling them, so when you get to basically the sons, these 7 sons, it's basically telling you in this chapter that because of the strength that they had in each other in the spirit, that they weren't scared to be tortured. And I'm talking about, you're talking about detailed torture in 4th Maccabees. Go read that. I did a study on that one already, but it doesn't matter. You can always, study obviously on your own, but it was a really good study about reason, the power of reason, wise reason. But it was very detailed, the torture that they were going through, and the point of the torture was to try to get them to adhere to whatever the king was telling them to do, which was drop their faith, following the commandments. But because they were so strong together in brotherly love, that every time one of them got tortured and ended up dying, the next one who was next was fired up. Like, bring it on. Like, let's go. Literally. And then the youngest one was last. So you would think that the one that's last would be like, man, like, psh, right? Because when you think about it, maybe in your own flesh, if depending on how strong or weak you are in the spirit, and you're thinking about torture, like nobody really been tortured like that. Like, maybe somebody has, but you're talking about this type of torture is not, you're not living past that. But they were firing each other up, essentially iron sharpening iron, right? So read that, brotherly love. So the ones who are peacemakers, it's not about, even there's certain things that are not right. It's not about breaking, somebody owns their own mindset about how they should go about breaking a chain or breaking a certain way of whatever's going on. Like, consult the spirit first. Some people say that they do, but what does peace look like? What does gentleness look like? What does kindness look like? What does it mean when you're speaking to people, or people remembering the things that you brought to them and the way that you were able to provide counsel? Because that also goes on your judgment. That also goes on, okay, are you offending someone? Whether or not someone is wrongly offended or not, if you offend someone to push them away from some truth, that's also something you have to take into consideration. But it's like, we have to evaluate what is really brotherly love, right? So I think eventually I'll probably do a study on that one, because it's something I feel like is definitely overlooked. But in that chapter, very, very awesome chapter to read. So next 2, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they reproach you, persecute you, falsely say a wicked word against you. For my sake, rejoice and be glad. So simply, I just put Acts 7. You will see when Stephen is very close to home for me, like something when I first read it when I was younger, always kept it. You don't really hear anybody talk about him like that, but even still, no matter if you talk about it or, people have read about it and they keep it into their heart. But he was persecuted. And I mean, his monologue is, I don't know, it gotta be top tier, like top 5. Like the bars that he was spitting was just, I mean, it literally angered the other people who were foolish and angry, to the point where they were throwing stones at him. That's how fire it was. Like, he getting stones thrown at you. It's not even tomatoes. It's literally stones. Somebody caught that. But in the midst of the stones being thrown at him, he was looking up into heaven. He was looking up at the kingdom. He was looking at the Messiah on the right hand of his Father. Those stones did not hurt him. The persecution did not hurt him. The reproach, the wicked words that they were saying, the people were saying, did not hurt him. He's like, man, it's my time. I'm locked in. I see what's my next portion, and I'm ready. And he was unfazed, and he was gone. Right? So blessed are those who can be like him, like the wise virgins, who were ready and who had containers filled with oil to meet the bridegroom. Saul was part of the congregation. Yep. So I think he was standing near. So he's literally introduced in the next chapter. Introduced in the next chapter and all that stuff. So which is interesting, right? Okay, so that was a solid Beatitude connection, right? But we're not done. We're not done, guys. Told you this one's gonna be heavy. We got some fire Beatitude connections here. Okay, so stuff, books that maybe you not have read. One thing about, especially this community, like it's always about, some people kind of take it too far, where they're like, okay, let me find a book that nobody reads and share it on stories, and it makes it seem like they're super wise or like whatever. It's so funny. Anyway, like, I'm not bringing these books up to seem like I got all the sacred books lined up in my room and my in my storage. It's just literally I read, know how to connect it, divide the word correctly, because the Most High blesses me to be able to do so, as He blesses others. And it's just fire. It's just fire. Okay. So, Epistle of Barnabas. I am going to reread that. What? Let's see. Oh my gosh. Interesting. Okay, so Epistle of Barnabas, chapter 19. Okay. I don't have any screenshots. It was way too long to be screenshot, or there's too many screenshots, because I have a bunch of screenshots for y'all to see. That the last part is amazing. All right, so we're connecting it to the Beatitude. Okay, let's listen up. So chapter 19, Epistle of Barnabas, or chapter 18. Now let us pass on to another lesson in teaching. There are two ways of teaching in power, one of light and one of darkness. And there is a great difference between the two ways. For light-bringing messengers of the Most High are set over the one, but the messengers of Satan over the other. The one is the Most High from age to age, and the other is the ruler of the present time of iniquity. So, two masters, right? Chapter 19. The way of light is this: if any man desires to journey to the appointed place, appointed time, we got some same verbiage here as we saw in Matthew 25 with the virgins and the parable of the virgins. Anyone desires to journey to the appointed place at the appointed time, let him be zealous in his works. Zealous in his works easily represents the oil that was in the containers. Therefore, the knowledge given to us of this kind, that we may walk in it, is as follows. You will love your Maker. You will fear your Creator. You will glorify Him who redeemed you from death. You will be simple in heart and rich in the Spirit. You will not join yourselves to those who walk in the way of death. You will hate all that is not pleasing to the Most High. You will hate all hypocrisy. You will not desert the commandments of the Most High. You will not exalt yourself, but will be humble-minded in all things. You will not take glory to yourself. You will form no evil plan against your neighbor. You will not let your soul be divisive. Y'all feel this? Verse 4, you will not commit fornication. You will not commit adultery. You will not commit sodomy. You will not let the word of the Most High depart from you among the impurity of any man. You will not respect the persons in the reproving of transgression. You will be meek. You will be quiet. You will fear the words which you have heard. You will not bear malice against your brother. You will not be in two minds whether it will be or not. You will not take the name of the Most High in vain, and you will love your neighbor more than your own life. You will not procure abortion. You will not procure abortion. And you will not commit infanticide. This is another book that has mentioned about abortion. Isn't it timely? You have the Apocalypse of Peter that mentions stuff about abortion. And then you have the Epistle of Barnabas, which I'm reading right now, mentioning abortion. It's so interesting. And they got to take these books out of the regular canon, right? Why do you think? I'm on verse, I think it's 5. You will not withhold your hand from your son or from your daughter, but you will teach them to fear the Most High from their youth up. Verse 6. You will not covet your neighbor's goods. You will not be greedy. You will not be joined in soul with the haughty, with the arrogant, but will converse with humble and righteous men. You will receive the trials that befall you as good, knowing that nothing happens without the Most High. You will not be a double-minded or talkative, talkative. You will obey your masters as a type of God, and modesty and fear. You will not command in bitterness your slave or handmaid who hope on the same Most High, lest you will cease to fear the Most High who is over you both. But he did not come to call men with respect of persons, but those whom the Spirit prepared. You will share all things with your neighbor, and will not say that they are your own property. For if you are sharers in which is incorruptible, how much more in that which is corruptible? So that is also connecting to something in Nehemiah. I feel like it's chapter 7, 8, or 9, but I forgot the word, but it's connected to debt. Okay. Usury. Okay. You will not forward to speak, for the mouth is a snare of death. For as you can, you will keep your soul pure. Do not be one who stretches out the hands to take and shuts them when it comes to giving. Then we read that in the Beatitudes. You will love as the apple of your eye all who speak the word of the Most High to you. Ding. I'm just kidding. You will remember the day of judgment day and night. You will remember the day of judgment day and night, and you will seek each day the society of the holy ones, either laboring by speech and going out to exhort, encourage, and striving to save souls by the word, not your own word, by the word, or working with your hands for the ransom of your sins. You will not hesitate to give. When you give, you will not grumble. We just read that about murmuring. But you will know that who the good paymaster of the reward is. You will keep the precepts which you have received, adding nothing and taking away. You will utterly hate evil. You will give righteous judgment. You will not cause quarrels, but will bring together and reconcile those that strive. You will confess your sins. You will not go yourself to prayer with an evil conscience. This is the way of light. That was the Epistle of Barnabas 18 through 19. Now watch this. It says, for chapter 20, but the way of the dark one is crooked and full of cursing, for it is the way of continuous death with punishment, and in it are the things that destroy their soul: idolatry, divisiveness, arrogance of power, hypocrisy, double-heartedness, adultery, murder, robbery, pride, transgression, fraud, malice, self-sufficiency, enchantments, magic, covetousness, the lack of the fear of the Most High, persecutors of the good, haters of the truth, lovers of lies, not knowing the reward of the righteousness. Not knowing the reward of righteousness. Those are the foolish versions. Who do not cleave to the good, nor to the righteous judgment, who do not attend to the cause of the widow and the orphan, spending wakeful nights not in the fear of the Most High, but in the pursuit of vice, from whom meekness and patience are far in distance, loving vanity, seeking rewards, without pity for the poor, not working for him who is oppressed with toil, prone to evil speaking, without knowledge of their Maker, murderers of children, corrupters of the Most High's creation, turning away the needy, oppressing the afflicted, advocates of the rich, and unjust judges of the poor, altogether sinful. Chapter 21, it says, "It is therefore good that he who has learned the ordinance of the Most High, as many as have been written, should walk in them. For he who does these things will be glorified in the kingdom of the Most High." Those are the wise virgins who had containers of oil. "And he who chooses the others will perish with his works," just like we talked about with the tares. "For this reason there is a resurrection. For this reason there is a repayment. I implore you, those who are in high positions, if you will receive any counsel of any good will, have among yourselves those to whom you may do good. Do not fail." That's why it says, especially let's just say for teaching, you are, not even just for teaching, as a teacher, you're a servant, period. And that's what it is. Like, and it says those who are high should be making themselves low. And I'm paraphrasing. But that's what it is. I'm a servant. Like, I am a servant. I'm full-fledged servant. And I'm totally fine with that. Like, it's perfect. What is the point of me sitting there thinking that my goal is to have X amount of followers and X amount of people who always want to ask me massive amount of questions, and then me saying a certain way that I think you guys should think, and not sit there and make sure I'm verifying it by the word of the Most High, and making sure that I go about talking to my brothers and my sisters in the right way that is telling us here what's righteous, what's in fear, what's in wisdom, right? Why be that way, you know? And this is another platform, like I say, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be. You see pastors with their foundation, their platforms, and how they end up literally becoming dark. Like literally, it's just it's telling you here that you're a servant when it's all said and done. So you're not supposed to fail them. Fail who are under you or with you, walking with you. Verse 3, it says, "The day is at hand when all things will perish with the evil one. The Most High and his reward is at hand, and I implore you again, be good lawgivers to each other. Remain faithful counselors of each other. Remove all hypocrisy from yourselves. Now may the Most High, who is the Elohim over the world, give you wisdom, understanding, prudence. Prudence is the discernment to be able to avoid danger and risk, right? Knowledge of his ordinances, patience, and be taught by the Most High. Seeking out what the Most High requires from you, and see that you be found faithful in the day of judgment." You guys, it's the same verbiage. Matthew 25. Seek what he requires from you. Why do you think the wise had the containers of oil? Because they knew what was required. That was the epistle of Barnabas. Chapter 20, I didn't finish all chapter 21. I had like a few more, but straight fire. Straight flames. I still got to read more of it. But yeah. So that was connected. So that's connected to the Beatitudes there. We got Gad the Seer, chapter 8. Gad the Seer, chapter 8. So in this chapter, David is actually speaking. Okay? David is actually speaking here. And you'll see how easy it's connected to the Beatitudes. It says, verse 1, the Most High appeared to David, and when he was old, and said to him, behold, I am with you, and I am your Elohim, and behold, my covenant is with you, and do not be afraid, nor discouraged, because your Most High is your helper. And David bowed down to the Most High and rejoiced in his heart. And the Most High said, speak these words in my name to the people, and make sure they understand and obey, so that they will live. If they do, I will no longer be angry with them. And the Most High put his words in his mouth. Then David assembled all Israel in Jerusalem, and he made a pulpit of wood for himself, and he stood on it and addressed all the people. He opened his mouth and said, hear, O Israel, O Yasharallah, your Elohim and my Elohim is one. Elohim is one, and the only one, and unique, and there is no one like his individuality. He is hidden from everyone. So you can also, I'm pretty sure, you guys know, like exchanging the word. Sometimes they may be saying God, like only the Father, but it also could be talking about specifically the Messiah here, which we know obviously is directly connected to the Most High. But a lot of times, scriptures don't really translate into it really being the Messiah that they're talking about or talking to, or the Messiah talking to them. Because in another scripture you will see that there about the hidden part, there's a portion of like when the Messiah is hidden from everyone, especially in the quote unquote Old Testament, but he's revealing himself to people like he did with Moses and etc. Okay. He always has been and always will be. He feels his creation, but his creation does not feel him. He sees everything, but is not seen. He knows the future and reveals it to mankind, for he is the everlasting Elohim, and there is no end to his presence, power, and truth. Whole worlds are filled of his glory. So you guys go read this yourself and really see like the things that he's talking about. Later on, he's going to say in verse 15, live in peace with each other. Love the deeds and those created in the image of the Most High like your own selves, because it is a sign that you love the Creator if you love his creation. It's so much heat in this chapter. So that was words of Gad the seer, chapter 8. It's so much heat in there. Man, it connects directly to the Beatitudes. It's part of the oil in the container that the wise had. Okay? I'm going to read from 4th Baruch and chapter 8 here. Actually, I'm not going to read that one. I'm going to skip that one for right now. That's going to be a part of another study, but you can mark it down for sure. And now I'm just going to go ahead and just knock out Enoch here. So, Secrets of Enoch or Second Enoch. Slavonic Enoch. And I'm going to summarize some and I'm going to read some. Okay? So, chapter 8, Second Enoch. It talks about this tree. So, you know in the regular First Enoch, you see he's talking about trees and things like that, right? So he's looking at these trees, and he says that between these trees that he was looking at, tree of life, and a certain type of heaven that he was in, one of the levels, he says that its root is in the garden of at the earth's end. So the tree of life has root in the garden at the earth's end, and paradise is between corruptibility and incorruptibility. And 2 springs come out which send forth honey and milk, and their springs send forth oil and wine, and they separate into 4 parts and go around with quiet course and go down into the paradise of Eden between corruptibility and incorruptibility. And it says, and there is no unfruitful tree, and every place is blessed. And there are 300 very bright messengers who keep the garden, and with unceasing sweet singing and never silent voices, who serve the Most High throughout all days and hours. And I said, how very sweet this place is. And those men said to me, this place, Enoch, is prepared for the righteous who endure all manner of offense from those that exasperate their souls. So we saw in the Beatitudes, when you're being persecuted, et cetera, blessed are you, right? And rejoice. Going back to here, it says, who avert their eyes from iniquity, who make righteous judgment, and give bread to the hungering, and cover the naked with clothing, and raise up the fallen, and help injured orphans, and who walk without fault before the Most High, and serve him alone. For them this place is prepared for continuous inheritance. Same verbiage we've been reading, you guys. And then, of course, it talks about what's on another side. It says, 2 men led me up to the north side and showed me a very terrible place. And there were all manners of tortures in that place. Cruel darkness and illuminated gloom, and there is no light there, but murky fire constantly flaming aloft, and there is a fiery river coming forth. That whole place is fire everywhere. And everywhere there is frost and ice and thirst and shivering, while the bonds are very cruel, and the messengers fearful and merciless, bearing angry weapons for merciless torture. And I said, woe, woe, how very terrible this place is. And those men said to me, this place, O Enoch, is prepared for those who dishonor the Most High, who practice sin against the nature on earth. So it's the same thing, who dishonor the bridegroom, who practice sin against nature on earth, which is child corruption after the sodomic fashion. You don't see that everywhere in Scripture. Magic making, enchantments, and devilish witchcrafts, and those who boast of their wicked deeds, stealing, lies, slanders, envy, malice, fornication, murder, and who cursed steal the souls of men, who seeing the poor take away their goods and themselves wax rich, injuring them for other men's goods, who being able to satisfy the empty, made the hungering die. Being able to clothe, strip the naked, and who do not know their Creator. Who do not know their Creator. That's along the same lines of the foolish virgins that the bridegroom said, I do not know you. And bow to the soulless and lifeless gods, who cannot see nor hear, vain gods, who also built hewn images, and bow down to unclean handiwork. This place is prepared for all those for a continuous inheritance. So you got on one end, the wise virgins who have brought oils in containers, are judged as righteous, and they get to go with the bridegroom and experience all these things because it's already prepared for them, right? For us, right? But for the ones who are on the opposite, it says what that's prepared also. You can easily read Apocalypse of Peter, very detailed, same imagery. Right? Let's go to 2 Enoch chapter 52. And this is all just showing the connections. I'm just reading some of it just to show the connections here, because like we're doing right now with this segment part of the study, we're trying to see what is the oil in the containers. All of this that are supposedly those who are wheat, who are the wise virgins, this is what we're supposed to have in order to literally meet the bridegroom. This is what we're supposed to have. Everything that we read, the Epistle of Barnabas, everything that we literally read that is for the wise, for the righteous, this is what he's requiring us to have. Chapter 52, 2 Enoch. Blessed is the man who opens his lips in praise of the Most High of hosts, and praise the Most High with his heart. Cursed is every man who opens his lips to the bringing into contempt and slander of his neighbor, because he brings the Most High into contempt. Blessed is he who opens his lips, blessing and praising the Most High. Cursed is he before the Most High all the days of his life, who opens his lips to curse and abuse. Blessed is he who blesses all the Most High's works. Cursed is he who brings the Most High's creation into contempt. Blessed is he who looks down and raises the fallen. Cursed is he who looks to and is eager for the destruction of what is not his. Blessed is he who keeps the foundations of his fathers made firm from the beginning. Cursed is he who averts Um, where is it? Cursed is he who perverts the decrees of his forefathers. Blessed is he who imparts peace and love. Cursed is he who disrupts or disturbs those that love their neighbors. Blessed is he who speaks with a humble tongue and heart to all. Blessed is he, or cursed is he who speaks peace with his tongue, while in his heart there is no peace but a sword. So that's easy connection to the tares that we talked about. Just because it looks like a wheat doesn't mean that it's a wheat. And the ones that attach themselves to a tare, sell their soul to a tare, because they think it's all wheat, they end up becoming the same as a tare. For all these things will be laid bare in the weighing scales and the scrolls on the day of the great judgment. And it says in chapter 56, so Methuselah, having answered his father Enoch, because Enoch was getting ready to leave, he says, basically, can I make some food for you? And Enoch answers, hear, my child, from the time when the Most High anointed me with the oil, with the ointment of his glory, there has been no food in me, and my soul does not remember earthly enjoyment. Neither do I want anything earthly. Beautiful. Beautiful. Chapter 61. It says, my children, keep your hearts from every injustice, every act of unrighteousness, which the Most High hates. Just as a man asks for something for his soul from the Most High, so let him do to every living soul. Because I know all things, how in the great time to come there is much inheritance prepared for men, good for the good, and bad for the bad without number. Many, blessed are those who enter the good houses, for in the bad houses there is no peace nor return from them. Hear, my children, small and great, when man puts a good thought in his heart and brings gifts from his labors before the Most High's face, an appointed time, let's say, but his hands did not make them, then the Most High will turn his face away from the labor of his hand, and that man cannot find the labor of his hands. It was in vain. And if his hands made it, but his heart murmurs, and his heart does not cease making murmur unceasingly, he does not have any advantage. It's the same concept. Engaging in feast days, not bringing the oil that's in the containers, following a calendar, whoever's calendar, that you decided to attach yourself to, and following just to follow, doing just to do, so you can be seen as a wheat, or so you can just excuse yourself from studying more about luminaries, right? That's just an example, and it doesn't matter whose calendar, right? Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, doesn't matter. It's the essence of the foundation underneath everything. Clear as day. Your works can be in vain if you're not in the right heart. Because the Most High, literally, there's a scripture that says his eyes are 10 times, it says 100 times brighter than the sun. He sees every work. He sees every heart. He sees everything. When you go outside right now, or after, you look at the sun, you can, like, how long, I wouldn't challenge yourself, but less than 3 seconds staring at the sun. If you're if you're in the right mind, you wouldn't go past 3 seconds. Probably shouldn't even go past 1, right? Good little glimpse, without glasses, shades, and you can see, like, it's just not meant for you to just stare at the sun like that. It's too bright. So we're talking about the sun, the Messiah, the Most High, also, eyes being 100 times brighter than the sun. There's no work in you. There's nothing in you that he cannot see. So why even murmur? Why do all that? It's because people's hearts are not in the right place. People's actions, people's intentions, people's mentality, the real reason why they do stuff, it's not right. But that's obviously there's a place for that, and that's the foolish virgins who didn't have oil for their lamp. That literally equates to the same exact thing. The wise that are going to be prepared and ready for this meeting with the bridegroom are going to get rid of the leaven. You're going to be wise. You're going to get right. You're going to understand the righteousness. You're going to know what's prepared or what is needed to meet this bridegroom. That's that's what we've literally been learning today. So that was some great connections there. And so I think what's going to happen, I'm probably going to have to do this again, where I split this study, because the next part is not long, but I have a lot of screenshots to show, and I won't ruin the surprise. But it's just a lot of the screenshots to show, just so we can read the screenshots and then get through it. But I'll just put this as part 2, obviously, because I have to go. I think I have to drop my sister-in-law off to work real quick. It's near me. But I'll call that next portion just part 2 of the oil of the lamp, and it's literally just an ending. It's just literally some last things to really consider. Is powerful. It's very, very powerful. And I look forward to really showing that there, but I'll save this study right now on IG, and then when I get back, probably take about 20 minutes or so, less than 30 minutes, I'll just go right in to literally that next part. All right, y'all. So hope this was very informing thus far, and very, really intriguing, to really show us like really what is required, and what, if it's a parable, literally like we talked about in the very beginning, if it's held at high authority and high superiority of something that we really need to be paying attention to, this is it. Because this is about the kingdom of heaven that literally everyone says, and that we always say that we're on this path going there, that we're going to, we're trying to receive the kingdom of heaven. We're trying to make it. This is how you make it, by being the wise virgins. And this is what's required, and for you to have the oil in these containers that the wise virgins had. And that's what gets you into the meeting with this bridegroom, and allows you to be there because you were actually prepared, and you wanted to be prepared. You wanted to be like him. You wanted your oil to be overflowing and represent that who you're meeting means more to you than anything. The life that he's giving you means more to you than anything. The life that he's giving you to be able to walk in his ways freely, that the free wisdom he's given is nothing to compare with that. And so essentially you're representing and giving him like your first fruits, right? You're not trying to be Cain, you're trying to be Abel, right? So that's the end of that, you guys, for the first part. Like I said, I will be back. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously, or watching later, obviously you can go to that second part whenever you're ready. And I appreciate you guys. I got about like less than 2 minutes. If you guys have any comments right now, anything I can answer, if you have any questions, I can go ahead and just answer it real quick. But if not, I will go ahead and end this and save it. So I'll wait about like 20 seconds or so. I think we're good. Think we're good. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. All right. So I'll go ahead and save it, you guys. And I will be right back.